Hello and welcome to Comically Incompetent. My name is Doug. This is a podcast where each week we take a movie and we take a beer whose name or make kind of has to do with that movie and we talk about it. So for anyone who's watched the show before, this is going to be a little different. I'm going to be running this one solo. Normally I have a guest, some amazing guest who helps me kind of walk my way through this, but I'm going to be doing this one alone. That's what kind of happens when you decide to record a show on Halloween, because it is October 31st today. And it's hot in Southern California, but we're going to do the show. We're going to do the best show I can give you guys. A little nervous, but hopefully it turns out well. But I'll be making more eye contact with you guys this time. I have a new camera with a new setup, so I think it's going to look a little bit cleaner, look a little bit better. I'll be looking down at my notes here every once in a while. I also have the movie running, just for kind of my reference, which I normally don't get to do because I have Zoom and all this stuff going at the same time. But yeah, hopefully it's good. I hope you guys enjoy the show. No question of the week this week, obviously. So I think just kind of getting into the show, into the movie. We're doing Captain Marvel this week, which I'm very excited about. I absolutely love Captain Marvel, and I have a lot to talk about this one. So I think it's okay I'm doing this one solo, because I think I can really fill the time on this one. It's probably going to be a shorter episode than normal, but I still hope you guys enjoy it. For the beer this week, I have a beer that I've been working very hard to get, because I think it works perfectly. We're doing Captain Marvel, and the beer is called Blonde Marvel. It's from Left Coast Brewing, so I'll talk more about that at the end of the show. I unfortunately don't have the can because they didn't have the can, so I have a crowler with just the Left Coast logo. So if you want to see the can, you want to see how it looks, either go to Left Coast website or check out the Comically Instagram on the Monday this comes out, which should be the 8th? The 9th. November 9th. So if you want to see that, yeah, go check that out. So I think just diving into the movie, this movie starts out with something that I think is pretty cool. So as I think most Marvel fans would know, Stan Lee passed away right before this movie came out in 2019. And so instead of, like, if you've seen the movies before, they usually have like the flipping comic book pages for the intro, and they have like Marvel, it's just that says like Marvel Studios and all that. For this one, it was all Stan Lee. It was all pictures of him, and it said "Thank you, Stan" at the end. And I thought that was just a really nice way that they were able to, I think, not focus too hard on it, but to give him the recognition that he deserved. Obviously, none of this would be here if it wasn't for him. He created these characters that are so unbelievably iconic, and I mean, changed so many lives, thousands, millions of lives around the world just from his creativity and his art. So I'm glad that they were able to do that and really bring that in for this movie, make it something that was special and referencing him, because he didn't get to, I think he was still in this movie and he was still in Avengers Endgame, but he didn't get to be in, he's not going to be able to have his cameos anymore, which is always sad. I think that's what everyone looks forward to when they watch a Marvel movie, is seeing the Stan Lee cameo in some capacity or another, and I think he's done that in every single Marvel movie, whether it's the MCU or outside the MCU, like Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, any of those. Yeah, I mean, the Captain Marvel is, I love this movie. I absolutely love it. I think it's one that gets a lot of hate for absolutely no reason. So it's the first female-led Marvel superhero movie, and Brie Larson is Captain Marvel, and she absolutely kills it. I think that this movie does have some ups and downs, and it has nothing to do with her. For some reason, people tend to blame her for maybe some weak plot points, some weak story points. It's not like she wrote the movie. And I mean, it's a good, the people have said, I know people who've said it's their least favorite Marvel movie. This movie is far superior to Thor: The Dark World, Thor, Captain America: The First Avenger. I mean, the Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, like, it's far superior to any of those Marvel movies. It has a strong character who, Brie Larson can carry this movie all on her own easily. She's fantastic, with great supporting characters. Ben Mendelsohn as the Skrull, and Jude Law as a Kree. Like, I mean, what's not to love about this movie? I mean, Ben Mendelsohn is an amazing character who usually plays a villain, so, I mean, we'll get to this point at the end of the movie, but I mean, it's nice to see him play someone who's a good character, really, because as far as I knew going into this movie, my comic book knowledge for the Skrulls were that they were evil, I thought. I mean, I hadn't read a comic book so that had the Skrulls, so I had no idea what I was kind of getting into. I thought they were going to be villains because that's what they want you to think. That's how the movie starts. But there's also that part of me that, if you've seen the other movies, it talks about how she is a Kree, which the only Kree I think we know in this point in the Marvel movies is Ronan the Accuser from the first Guardians of the Galaxy. So part of you is like, I mean, if he's a Kree, which they say in the movie he's like a Kree radicalist, but there's still something kind of like off about that, right? Sorry, the hard part about doing a podcast solo and having a beer as a main focal point of your show is that there's no one to fill in the gaps, the silences, while you're drinking the beer. So I'm probably going to keep those in on the audio version, so we'll see. Just so it can be nice and awkward for everybody. But yeah, so the way this movie opens up is we have Brie Larson's character, Captain Marvel, who she's called Veers in this, and she's training with Jude Law. She obviously has these powers that are not anything that we've seen before, and even the Kree don't really seem to have knowledge of what it is. They pretend to by saying, like, we can take it away, we gave it to you, we can take it away, which is not true. Obviously, they're lying to her. But, I mean, this, and then she goes and sees the Supreme Intelligence, which is a whole thing. I think the only part where this movie really suffers is in some of the relationships. I don't think that, I mean, nothing, it didn't seem believable to me when she's talking to Jude Law, and that has nothing to do with her or him or the acting. That's a lot to do with the writing, because the way that this movie was shot, it was that Brie Larson shot Endgame before there was even a script written for Captain Marvel. So she had to pretend to be this established character that was supposed to already have her own movie and this character. And that was when people, I didn't like this, that people were complaining that she was not in Endgame enough and that they kind of wrote her out of it, which I think, first of all, makes sense. They said that her reasoning was there's a lot of other planets going through what Earth is going through, and they all don't have Avengers, so she has to go protect them. Great way to write out a character that Marvel didn't know what they were doing with her yet. And that really bugs me is that Brie Larson gets the blame for Marvel not thinking this all the way through. I mean, they rushed it, and they didn't give it what it deserved. So I'm hoping Captain Marvel 2 is going to bring in a whole new, like, kind of ideology to this and bring in a whole new, like, set of strong characters and really give this character what she deserves as a solo movie. Or a second solo movie. Also, one of the complaints I hear a lot about her is that people are always like, she's overpowered. So is Thor. Thor has to be dumbed down to work with the Avengers in the first Avengers. He is a god. And he's fighting on the same level as, let's face it, Hawkeye. Like, I know this podcast has kind of been jokingly known as like a Hawkeye hate podcast, but it's true. I mean, he's kind of underwhelming as far as the Avengers go. I mean, the most underwhelming of the Avengers, in my opinion. But, I mean, what this movie goes, and I mean, I think this movie does a lot of really cool things. Things that we had seen kind of in practice, but this puts it, like, into full-on, like, use. I mean, we had the de-aging technology that I've talked about on Ant-Man with my dad and Ant-Man the Wasp, and we talked about in Civil War, and they put it to an entire movie. I mean, you have Samuel L. Jackson, who's always phenomenal. There's nothing... Samuel L. Jackson can do no wrong. Even movies that are considered, like, bad that he's done are still great because they're Samuel L. Jackson movies. And they de-aged him to look like 1990s Samuel L. Jackson the entire time. And I was saying it last week on Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think that was them kind of maybe testing it out because they were using it a lot on Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas. And I think they were kind of maybe testing to see if it could work, if they could get away with a whole movie about it. And they definitely did. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson does great. He looks just like 1990 Samuel L. Jackson. And even Agent Coulson, they de-aged a little bit. Well, I guess a lot. And he looked really good, too. It was really cool to see that. Yeah, so Veers goes, and she's, they go to try and rescue a Kree from the Skrulls. So they go to this planet, and she ends up getting captured, and they're trying to get her memories of where this person we don't know, Larson, is holding we don't know yet. We don't really know what they're going for. But that fight scene, so she has this escape scene where her hands are like in this like metal tubes of like what they're using to like make sure she couldn't attack. Fantastic fight scene. The music in this movie also, side note, is just fantastic. But this fight scene is amazing. She is super funny, super charismatic, and super powerful, and you get to see it all in just one fight. Like they did a really good job of kind of bringing it all into one singular fight. And they just do a good job. It's a fun movie. Like, Also, one thing I want to get into is there after she gets on Earth, she lands in a blockbuster, very 1990s. I love that. I miss blockbuster. Um, there's this chase scene where they're in going through Los Angeles on like those like rail line train things, and so I lived in LA when this movie came out. I know I've said that a bunch, but we were at an ArcLight theater over there in kind of like El Segundo area. I don't know if anyone knows like Los Angeles area, kind of El Segundo, and over that theater runs the rail line they use. There's a street they showed Douglas Street, which is like we're 2 blocks from where I lived. So we're in the theater and we're watching in this theater, and they showed that street name, which is the street that the theater's on, and they show the rail, and then basically you can see the theater in the shot, and everyone in my theater just like erupted because it was so cool. Like we're just in like that was right outside, that was right over here. It was really cool. It was a really fun kind of thing that I'm glad that they were able to. Not that they were able to do, but it's funny because people who don't know Los Angeles, because in the movie they're on that chase scene, they're on the trains, and they go through like a tunnel, then all of a sudden they're downtown. Which, like, downtown's not far, but that rail line does not run to downtown, and not easily and not that quickly. It would take hours to get to downtown from that rail line, which I just think is funny that, people who don't know, that's like, yeah, I mean, that's Los Angeles. That makes sense. But it's just funny being someone who, like, lived there and, like, lived literally 2 blocks from where that happened is really fun. Yeah, so that's when she lands on Earth, she lands in the blockbuster. And that's when we get to see Nick Fury and Agent Coulson, who are obviously skeptical. I mean, the only thing they'd ever seen that was superhero-ish was Captain America, who they haven't worked with, obviously, because he's still asleep. And that was an Earth thing. That was a German scientist serum created Captain America. So there's nothing that would ever make them believe that these like extraterrestrials, or that these people live on other planets. So, obviously, they're skeptical until she starts shooting lasers out of her hands, and in that chase scene that I was talking about, a Skrull pretends to... I get those mixed up all the time. A Skrull pretends to be Coulson, and ends up having a fight with Samuel L. Jackson, and obviously you don't win a fight with Samuel L. Jackson. So, the Skrull dies, and that's when he starts to finally believe her, and they start to work together. So, they go to try and find out what this Pegasus company is, which I read that they'd mentioned before in a past Marvel movie. I couldn't even begin to remember where. I would have to go through and watch again, which I honestly don't want. This whole series has been so fun to make, but I need a little bit of a Marvel break, which is why we're doing that palate cleanser of Shrek, just the complete opposite. I'll get more into that at the end, but yeah, so they're trying to figure out what Pegasus is. So they end up going to this like secret, like I'm thinking like CIA maybe, or like the Pegasus headquarters basically, in to try and figure out who this Lawson is, who Wendy Lawson is. So they go and they kind of sneak in, and they kind of start to find out and put it together. And that's what she realizes when Captain Marvel realizes that she's from Earth in some capacity. She still is trying to put it together because she was so brainwashed with the Kree that they were telling her, like, you are a Kree, this is who you are, you hate these people, like this, you hate the Skrulls are bad, even so much as like warping her memories to make her believe that the Skrulls had attacked her, because she kind of has that dream where she's starting to kind of remember a little bit of what happened, but instead of seeing who really caused the accident, she's seeing a Skrull. So it's just like, it's a good movie of like twists and turns, and like, yeah, they're a little predictable. There's nothing in the movie that's like, whoa, mind-blowing, but there's nothing in any Marvel movie that really is like the M. Night Shyamalan twist you're looking for. So yeah, they go and they figure out that, she's human, basically. So she has to go track down the one person, this person who seemed to have seen Lawson before the crash of that memory she's kind of having. So they go and they meet what is her name? Sorry, hold on. I have my notes, but I need to find it in my notes. Which honestly, part of my notes is just IMDb. What is her name? Monica Rambeau is the daughter, and then there is Maria Rambeau. Yeah, so they go to Maria Rambeau, who ends up, you find out, was Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel's friend, who kind of fills her in on what happened, and tells her what was going on this whole time. And I thought their chemistry was great. The second you see them on screen, you believe like they're good friends, and they've been friends their whole lives. And it definitely, ties in with, they have that kid, Monica Rambeau, who she does a good job, and she's, just a good actress. And then that's when kind of the twists start to come through, and you start to kind of learn the truth of, that's when you find out the Skrulls are the good guys and the Kree are the bad guys. And that's when Captain Marvel starts to put it together of really what's going on. And I mean, it's just a great scene. I mean, like I said before, you have Ben Mendelsohn, who is fantastic. He plays Talos, kind of like, I guess, the leader of this group of Skrulls. I don't think he's like the leader of all the Skrulls from what I can tell, but just like the leader of like these Skrulls that we see in this movie. And they're refugees. I mean, their planet and their home was destroyed by the Kree, who I'm guessing it was probably Ronan's group, because Ronan is in this. Lee Pace, just have a second, which I want to get there. That these people were just fighting for their lives, not to take over like the Kree had been telling Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, that they were just refugees, just trying to get away and trying to find their people and just trying to live in relative safety. And they did a good job of making those characters someone that, like, I mean, I think one of the issues I have with this movie is that you're watching it and you kind of know something's up the whole time. There's never a party that's like, the Skrulls are bad. You're kind of like, something's there. Something doesn't add up. And then there's always like her group of people who are played by, we get Korath again, who we got to see Korath in Guardians of the Galaxy. So we know that he kind of moves on, does that. And that whole group of like Kree fighters who are kind of dicks, to be honest. Like, I never buy that they're the good guy, that group of people are the good guys. I mean, you kind of want to believe Jude Law, but my issue with Jude Law is that no matter what role he plays, he could be in the most insane makeup ever, and he just looks like Jude Law the whole time. Like, it's Jude Law. But I mean, they did a good job of making that kind of change and making you want to help the Skrulls and make sure that they get where they need to be. And that's when we kind of get these scenes of, so I'm kind of scrubbing through the movie just to make sure I'm not missing anything major. So far, I'm not. Where are we? Oh, that's also when you learn the true meaning of the crash. So what happens is you find out that crash, that's where she got her powers, was like this special like Lightspeed engine blew up and she absorbed its energy, giving her the Captain Marvel powers of like these insanely cool, really colorful powers that are like kind of remind me of like what's the bridge that Heimdall uses? That it reminds me a lot of that. And I like her powers. I think she's really cool. She can do so much, and I like her costume. I like everything about that. So you find out that it was Jude Law's character who was the one that was going to kill her. But then when he saw that because they were going for that Lightspeed engine, and when she absorbs its power, that's why they take her, and that's why they basically try and brainwash her. Which is, I mean, it makes sense. The bad guys, they needed it, so they went after her to get it. And that's when you're starting to root for them. So now they go up and they find where Lawson, who is you find out she's not a human, she's a Kree, she's Mar-Vell, which I'm assuming is because they never actually call Brie Larson's character, Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. I'm assuming that might be something that's implied, that she took over the name of that person to use like her superhero name, but then, because they reference at the end of the movie how Nick Fury always calls her Marvel, and she's like, no, Mar-Vell. It's two separate words, but I think that's kind of Nick Fury's, like, that was the movie's way of having Nick Fury explain, that's why she's Captain Marvel, not Captain, like, Mar-Vell or anything like that. I mean, they do a good job this way, and then so they go and they, you find the family, and you get to see all these Skrulls who are just trying to live in peace, and that's when Jude Law, Yon-Rogg, I don't want to call him Yon-Rogg, so Jude Law, that whole group captures her, and they send her into the Supreme Intelligence to try and, I don't know, maybe like brainwash her again. Kind of like, I don't know what they were trying to do by putting her back into this. But I think this is one of my favorite scenes, and this is one thing that people kind of didn't like about it too. So there's a scene where she is fighting back against the Supreme Intelligence, and there's a shot of like the Supreme Intelligence showing her when she's a kid getting knocked down, her entire life always being knocked down. And then you get this scene where the music starts to rise, and all her versions of herself are just starting to get back up again. And I love that. And people are like, oh, it was cheesy, it was this, it was that. It's like, Captain America's literal whole thing is that he always gets back up. He always says it, I could do this all day. And people are like, that's a great line. But like, it was such a powerful scene. It was so cool to see her, like, it's a powerful moment for, and not just people, like, it's just for anyone watching this movie. It's that message of like getting back up. And I like that was a lot of what this was. 'Cause I think you have these heroes who are starting to become unrelatable. I think a lot of these characters like Captain America, you can relate to a lot of Steve Rogers and that change, or Tony Stark early on, you kind of relate to a lot of these characters. But as this series is kind of moving forward, they're starting to become these ultra powerful Earth lifelines. And I think you lose a lot of that relatability. So it was nice to kind of bring that back and have a character that you can look at and almost feel yourself in again. Like I like that part. I like that they were able to do that again and have a character that you can see and like understand, which I liked. So that's a great scene. And then she ends up losing, because they had this chip on her like neck that was controlling her powers and making her weaker, so she can only really shoot the blast from her hands. And then when that comes off, she goes like, I don't know if anyone's seen My Hero Academia, she goes full on plus ultra and is like flying around covering herself in like her power, like the lights and everything. It was really, really cool. And she goes and has to start fighting, basically the Kree, and finding her way out to protect the Skrulls. But a couple things in there happen that I need to talk about. So the Tesseract is the source that the Kree were going for the whole time. That engine that Captain Marvel absorbed the power of was just a part of it. It was powered by the Tesseract. And I confused me on the timeline, so I looked it up. And yeah, I mean, there's a gap between where the Tesseract is, because it's taken to Howard Stark has the Tesseract, and then it's kind of gone from there. But then you obviously, this Captain Marvel got it from somewhere. I mean, it makes sense. Like, there's nothing that would make it not make sense, but there's just nothing that like confirms, I guess, it's tracking its like movement throughout since because if you watch these movies in chronological the story about Captain America, Captain Marvel, there's like that 50-year gap of where is this Tesseract? Because then after this movie is when she gives it to Nick Fury, who then that makes sense why S.H.I.E.L.D. has it when it comes to the first Avengers in 2012, was that they were trying to learn about it with, I can't remember everyone, there's too many movies. That doctor played by, what's-his-face from Thor, Skarsgård. The actor's name is something Skarsgård. There's too many Skarsgård. Stellan Skarsgård, maybe? Who's the one in It? Never mind. And yeah, I mean, that it's a kind of a weird timeline of how where the Tesseract is moving, but I thought that was an interesting call too. I mean, obviously, like, it's not important for where we're going into Avengers Endgame that the Tesseract is there at the time, because we talked about Infinity War last week. He already has the Space Stone, which was the Tesseract, so we already there's more just like a fun callback for the fans to kind of see like, oh, the Tesseract, that's fun kind of situation. Yeah, so then the other thing I want to talk about before I move on is that there's the cat, that Orange Tabby, which reminds me so much of my Orange Tabby. Nick Fury's character is like, he loves the cat, and the Skrulls are all terrified. It's like a Flurkin, which I think is funny, and he's like, it's just the cat. Turns out that the Flurkin, whatever the hell that is, whatever a Flurkin is, which is terrifying, because that thing is like tentacles coming out of the cat's mouth and killing all the people. Like, thank God it's on the good people's side, because it's nuts. I want to know more about what a Flurkin is and why it looks like a cat, because there's a lot of unanswered questions on what the hell that is going on there. Yeah, I just had to bring up the Flurkin. So then Captain Marvel escapes, and she saves the Kree. So far, we think they all get on a ship, which is going to be flown by her friend, Maria Rambeau, and they go flying off, and Captain Marvel is basically thrown off the ship. But then you learn, she can fly, and she can survive in space. So she flies, and then she has to take down. So Maria Rambeau's character, obviously another amazing pilot. She is badass. She outpilots that space Minerva. Sorry, she outpilots Minerva and kills her. And she's badass, so she is able to take the Skrulls to safety. And that's when, right as that's happening, right as they're kind of starting to get back at it, Yon-Rogg goes flying, and he's going to try and take down the ship as well. But Captain Marvel kind of knocks out his ship, but right as that happens, Lee Pace, Ronan the Accuser, comes in with all these ships shooting probably 12, 15 warheads at Earth. Captain Marvel goes, destroys them all, and destroys the ships, goes up to Ronan, is basically just leave, never come back, and he implies we're gonna come back, and his sidekick guy is for the stone, he's no, for the woman, which I think is interesting. There's obviously, I don't think, a payoff, because we saw him die in Guardians of the Galaxy, so I don't know what the payoff was there, but interesting still. I think it was cool to see him again. He looks weird because he's still blue, but he doesn't have all that black face makeup and all that stuff on. So something that looked just a little bit off about him. He looked almost his face looked naked, is the best way I can describe that, which doesn't exactly make sense. But if you watch the movie, if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy as much as I have, and then you've seen Captain Marvel, it looks wrong when he doesn't have that black makeup on. Which is interesting that, I wonder if he was working for Thanos at the time, too, because, this was the 90s. We don't know exactly Thanos' timeline. The oldest, farthest back we go is 2014, I think, in Endgame for Thanos' timeline. So I guess we saw him in 2012 in Avengers, but we don't know if, he had some Ronan working for him at all throughout any of that. But then Captain Marvel goes back, and she sends back Yon-Rogg with a message to Hala. I think Hala is the name of the Kree planet. Basically saying, I'm coming for you guys, and I'm going to take down this broken, bad group of people on this planet, and sends them off. So now it's kind of, they're sitting there trying to figure out what to do with the Skrulls, where the Skrulls are going to go, because they don't have a home because it was destroyed by the Kree. So then she says that she'll go take them, and she'll help them out. And that's kind of where the movie ends, is really that is she's going to go help the Skrulls, and that's kind of as far as we know, which then we have our mid-credit scene, which is the big one, the big Avengers Endgame lead-in, the very, very important one, which is we see Captain America, Black Widow, the Hulk, the War Machine, and this is post-Thanos snap. They're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And if you guys remember, the end credit scene for Infinity War is Nick Fury hitting that pager, which we saw in this movie her give him the pager. And she said for emergencies only, obviously an emergency. So he clicks it, which then we see the Captain Marvel, her chest piece logo, which is, awesome. Awesome end credit scene, really cool lead in for a great movie. And so in this one, they're that stopped. The pager stopped blinking. Whatever signal it was sending out is not working anymore. So then Captain America's you gotta turn it back on. And that's when Black Widow turns around and Captain Marvel's there, and she's where's Nick Fury? And that's, so cool. It's it's a great lead into Endgame. I think I remember that was probably to me, when I was watching these movies in the theaters, the craziest end credit scene of because Endgame is the wrap up of everything that you've been seeing for these 10 years. So any sort of information for what was going to happen in that movie and how that movie was going to work was, insane and amazing and totally worth it. So I like that end credit scene. Then you get a, oh no, that was the end credit scene. The mid credit scene is this an end credit scene? Oh yeah, there is one more, and that was a mid credit scene. The end credit scene is Goose, the cat, the Flurkin, coughs up the Tesseract after they gave the cat the Tesseract to hold on to for safekeeping. And so now that's kind of implying that's how they got the Tesseract for the Avengers movie. And that's pretty much the movie. I think this movie is fantastic. I think Brie Larson nails it. I think anyone's complaints are I mean, I gotta admit, I have to say it. If you agree with me or disagree with me, at this point, I don't super care because I think the movie's great and you're entitled to your opinions. But I mean, any complaints that a lot of people have, there's some obviously valid complaints about plot points and everything, but a lot of these complaints are very hypocritical. I mean, she's overpowered, so is Thor. The getting back up thing is cheesy, so is Captain America. Captain America is a cheesy, just like laughable character in a lot of respects. I mean, I love Captain America. I think he's amazing, but a lot of these things, and I think what they did wrong was shooting this movie in a rush after Avengers Endgame. Because I think that if they didn't give her the time, this movie, this story, this character, the time of day that deserved, the time that it should have gotten to be. Because I think it could. I mean, if this movie was as rushed as it was and still as good as it was, I want to know what they could have done with it if they would have taken their time and maybe thought farther ahead with their planning. Because, I mean, Marvel has always done a good job. I think when it came down to it, they knew they wanted to get this in before Endgame, but they couldn't because they were shooting Endgame. I'm sure it took forever to shoot, but I think it's any issue like that's the fault of the studio and not the crew, the actors, anything like that. And people to blame her and them for a movie that they maybe didn't like for some stupid reason here or there, and it's beyond me. But I mean, I think it's a good movie, and if you don't like it, you're entitled to not like it. No one's telling you have to like the movie. I'm just saying it's a great movie. And it deserved, in my opinion, it deserved so much more than it got, and so much more love than it got. So I'm really excited for Captain Marvel 2. There is a thing that happened where there's a shot on set of the FBI agent from Ant-Man and the Wasp on set with, we're assuming, is Monica Rambeau, the daughter of Maria Rambeau, who we saw. And they're working together, so maybe Captain Marvel 2, Ant-Man 3 sort of thing. We don't really know. The other comic book news piece that's important is that Oscar Isaacs was cast as the Moon Knight. I'm so excited. If you guys want to know more about the Moon Knight, you can go listen to episode 2, all the way back to episode 2 of this podcast when Ben and I were co-hosting. We talk about the Moon Knight, so go ahead and check that out if you guys want. Be filled in before the Moon Knight show comes out. So I don't have to ask anyone. I'm just going to go into the beer now. So Force of Habit. It's called Blonde Marvel. It's from Left Coast Brewing. Left Coast Brewing has 2 locations. It's going to be in San Clemente, California, which is southern California, right? Like north of San Diego, but still pretty southern California. And Irvine, California, which is kind of closer to Anaheim area. We do, like I said, we try and aim for local. This is a really, really good beer. It is a, let's see. It is a 4.5 alcohol by volume, so pretty light. Pretty light beer. It's really, really good. I'd recommend it as it's very refreshing, on a hot day. It's a good beer to have on a hot day. You don't want to go an IPA or anything that's really hot. So if you're over 21, definitely go check it out. Super good. Left Coast is great. The 2 locations are awesome. They're both open for kind of that dine in. They have this, in Irvine at least, which is where I got this, they have this outside seating. Really, really cool area. Really nice area. They serve food, which I'm assuming is pretty good. I haven't got a chance to eat there yet. But I would highly check it out. Blonde Marvel is a blonde ale, and here's the description from their website specifically. Blonde Marvel is a surfer by day, superhero by night. This refreshing blonde ale is clean and crisp, perfect for a sunny day in California. So, I mean, it works perfectly. Blonde Marvel, Captain Marvel. I remember finding this early on during the show when I was took screenshots. I was just wait, we'll get there. This will be the one for that show. So very excited, very good. I'd highly recommend if you guys, and I've always said it, but if you guys live in Southern California, easy to get to, really highly recommend it, checking them out. So I think that's about it. Like I said, shorter episode, about a half an hour long, where there's no one to riff off of. It's going to tend to be a little shorter, but we are on YouTube, so check us out there. We are on everywhere you listen to podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, anywhere you listen to podcasts, we are there. So go check us out there. Don't forget, we do Question of the Week every week. If you want to have a question and you're watching on YouTube, put it in the comments down below. If you are listening to the podcast on any of the podcast sites, go ahead and follow us on Twitter and Instagram and leave your Question of the Week there. Also, every new episodes every single Monday morning, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so as far as the future of the show goes, because we're coming to an end, we're wrapping up this MCU review, we have Endgame next week with Dom and Grayson, so no guests this week, but 2 next week to make up for it. Hope you guys enjoy that. And then we're ending this MCU review series with Adam and I doing Spider-Man Far From Home. And then after that, we would be taking 1 week off, 1 week break, and then we'll be getting into Dom, Grayson and I doing the Shrek quadrilogy, and then Adam and I doing the Dark Knight trilogy. So, and I'll fill you guys in more on what's coming and what's going to happen after that. But so for the layout's going to probably be one set on comic books, one set not on comic books. And when I say set, I mean like a trilogy or two movies, whatever we're going to do. We're not going to alternate episodes. We're going to alternate by series. So check that out. I really hope you guys like this episode. I think it turned out better than I could have hoped. My first one alone, so hopefully if you guys like it, you'll be more, and I'll be more open to doing more solo episodes, because I had a lot of fun doing this for you guys. So yeah, check us out on anywhere, follow us, do all that stuff, like, subscribe, follow, all that junk, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.